What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to learn how we can use AI in Databricks. The first one that we're going to be looking at is Genie, and Genie is built for business users to be able to get insight from their data just using natural language. Next, we're going to be using their AI assistant to help us code. So we'll be using that in the SQL editor as well as the notebooks. It's going to help us generate code, but it's also going to help us diagnose and fix issues if we run into them. Next, we're going to use their AI assistant in the dashboards tab. So it's going to help us create visualizations. Now, what's so amazing is you're going to be able to try all of these things completely for free because in Databricks Free Edition, you can use all of their AI tools completely for free. Be sure to use the link in the description to create your account so you can follow along and practice and actually use all these AI tools. With that being said, let's jump on my screen and get started. When you first pull up Databricks, we're going to need to come right down here within the SQL section to Genie. Let's go ahead and click on this. And this about sums it up for Genie. You can ask questions about your data in natural language. And that's what it is. It's just a way to converse with your data, ask questions about your data. Let's come over here. We're going to go to New. And we want to connect to a data source. We are going to use a sample data set. Let's actually go to All. It's within the samples right down here, this New York City data set. This is the data that we're going to be using for this video. Let's go ahead and create this. It's going to spin up our SQL warehouse because that is what we're going to be using to interact with this data. Now, while this is going and while it's just starting up, and we can get rid of this, we now have this data that sits right over here. Now, I'm just going to give you kind of an introduction to kind of this interface, but we're right here in this configure tab. We can come over here and we can create custom instructions for whatever we want this Genie to be. So if this Genie is supposed to be for a specific team or a specific project or whatever it is, you can give it these guidelines because then you can share this with other people and they can interact with it. So if it's people on your team who are interacting with a specific data source, then everyone can interact with that AI in the same way, and it's pretty cool. If we come right over here to settings, we can also name this. So I'm just going to call this one Databricks Genie Taxi. And I could add some description, but I'm not going to at the moment. Now, right over here, you'll notice in this space, we have a little bit of kind of prompting that is just, hey, here's some things that you can click on and we can give you that information. We can also add a sample question. So if you want to add one for your team or whoever you're working with, or just for yourself, you can add a question right here. Let's just go ahead and save this. And we're going to get out of here so that we have just this Genie interface right here. Now, as I mentioned before, Genie is really great for a business user, someone who's just going to be using natural language in order to ask questions about the data. If you are a more technical user, you're most likely going to be using the AI assistant that we're going to be looking at in the SQL editor and the notebooks. You can edit and dive into the code and get into the more programming side of Databricks. Let's just go ahead and ask it to explain this data set because we haven't taken a look at this data set at all. In fact, I don't even know what it looks like. It's just a New York City taxi data set. So it says here's where it's located. It contains taxi trips, including pickup, drop-off, trip distance, fare amount, and pickoff/drop-off zip codes. This is the only table in here. Now we can actually come over here to configure and we can click on this table and we can see a very quick kind of sample of this. But I'm going to ask it to show me a sample of the data, please. I like to be polite when working with AI. You just never know. Right, I just want to make sure I'm being respectful here. So now it's going to give me a sample of our data. Now you'll notice right over here, we have this show code. And this is what it's going to do for basically anything. It's going to show us kind of what it's doing under the hood, which I really like. You can also edit in here. So if we want to come in here and we want to say, okay, let's limit it to 20 because we only have a small sample down here. Now we can run this again. And it's going to keep all this information, but we're now rerunning and kind of changing the code as we go if you want to do that. So now let's take a look just at our data really quickly. This is for taxi data. So we have a pickup time, a drop-off time, how long the distance was, how much it cost, the pickup zip, and the drop-off zip. So fairly simple data. Now there's a lot of things I could ask about this data set. I'm going to keep it pretty simple. As we go further along in this video, we're going to get a little bit more technical, a little bit more challenging to the AI to really see what it can do. So I'm just going to say, what zip code are people being picked up at the most? So I just want to know where most people are being picked up. Maybe there's a specific zip code that 99% of these users are getting picked up at, and that would be really useful information. So let's see what Genie comes up with. So it says it right here, the most common pickup zip is 10,001 with 1,227 pickups recorded. Now you can see that right down here, but again, you have to remember that this is mostly for business users. And so I think it is good that they include this information up here just as a narrative that you can read. Let's go ahead and look at the code. So it looks like they're looking at the pickup zip, which is exactly what we would want to do. They're doing just a count of everything, and then they're grouping on that pickup zip as well, but then ordering it descending on the pickup count and limiting by 1. This is how I would have written it as well. This isn't anything crazy complex, but I think it did a really good job answering this question. Now, as I've been testing and working within Genie, it is pretty good with answering a lot of the questions about the data. Let's get a little bit more difficult with this one. So let's come down here and let's say, what time of day do most people get a ride? Now, this is kind of how I would imagine someone who's not very technical might ask this question, right? It's not very specific, and I'm curious as to how it's going to handle it. So let's see what code it writes and the output that we get. So it looks like it used the pickup hour. It says the highest number of rides occur at 1800, which is 6 p.m., with 1455 rides during that hour. Let's look at the code really quick. So it looks like it's using this hour right here within our date time. It's running a count. It's kind of filtering a little bit and grouping on this and doing kind of the same thing it did in our previous query. Now, Genie does have the ability to create visualizations as well. Let's see if it can visualize this. I'm going to say, can you visualize this? All right, it did exactly what I asked it to do. I asked it to visualize it, and it literally is visualizing the pickup hour and the count amount. This is not exactly what I had in mind. I actually wanted to see all the pickup times over time. So I'm gonna ask it if it can show me all the pickup hours and the counts and visualize it. So I just went ahead and wrote that. I said, write a SQL query to show me all the pickup times and the counts and then visualize it. Let's see if it's able to do this one because the previous visualization was not exactly what I was hoping for, although it gave me exactly what I asked for. So it looks like it did this properly, and let's just look at this. They really are just doing the same query, but now they're not, filtering on it descending and then limiting it by 1. Now we have all of them. And whoops, let's go right down here. And now we have a visualization of this data. As you can see right here, this is our highest one. This is our 1800 or our 6 p.m. And so now we have this visualization. Now the thing about Genie is it's kind of its own standalone thing. So if we want, we can come up here and we can copy this. So we can copy all of this and bring this over to the SQL editor. But again, that's not really the use case here. The use case is that a business user can come in here and ask questions about the data and get their questions answered without having to go into the SQL editor or a notebook or build a dashboard. So with that being said, let's come right over here to our SQL editor. And let's go right over here and let's take a look within a new query window. Let's take a look at the AI assistant that they have. Now, they have one right here, but you can also see a button right up here. They are both the assistant, but they are used in a different way. I'm going to demonstrate that in just a little bit. We're going to generate some code, but then we can ask larger context questions about the code and the data and revisions and insight into our data with our assistant up here, but we can't really do that with this one because this is purely for generating code. Let's go ahead and click on generate code. Now we don't have this connected to our data, so I'm just going to say, show me our New York City taxi data. And I'm going to ask it to generate this. Now, this is very generic. I don't even know if it's connected to this data. Let's just see what it does. It does not know exactly what data I'm talking about. And that's because we're in this workspace.default. I just wanted to see if it would be able to pick up on it, but it's not doing that. Let's click over here. Let's go to our samples. And for our schema, let's come down here to New York City. I'm going to accept this really quick because I want to demonstrate something. Let's go ahead and try to run this. It's not going to work, and that's okay. But what we can do is we can come right down here and we can say, let's diagnose this error. So let's click on the diagnose, and the assistant in the top right is now going to be activated. It's going to do this /fix. And so now it's going to say, okay, we need to use the proper schema. And even if we hadn't switched over, honestly, it would have picked this up. This assistant up here is slightly more context aware, I've noticed, than the actual code generation right down here. So now we can try running this, and we can run this right over here. And we're going to be able to see our data at the bottom. And I'm going to click this button in. It's going to say replace active query content. And so now I'm going to paste all this code right into this window. Let's get rid of this for now. And what we're going to do is I'm going to edit this code. So as you can see, it highlights all of our code. And I'm going to do two things. One, I'm just going to do this / and we're going to get some options here. We're going to say /doc /explain. We have all these options and it tells you what they do on this right-hand side. So we can explain the code, improve the formatting, optimize the code, replace parameters, fix errors in our code. There's a lot of different options and they're just kind of defaults. And these are things that you can use really easily. We just fixed our code, so we're not going to do that right now. But what I'm going to ask it to do is do something totally different. Let's actually run our code really quick because I want you to be able to see the data in here. But we have two really useful columns, a pickup time and a drop-off time. And I'm going to ask it to calculate the difference between this and give us the average of those times. What's the average length of ride? It says the trip distance, but it doesn't tell us how long the trip took. So I'm going to go into the code. I'm going to say, I want the average time it took between pickup and drop off. Now this is a little bit more difficult. This is more difficult than anything we did in Genie. Let's see if it's able to write this code correctly. Now we can see what it's getting rid of with the red lines, and with the green lines, we can see what it's actually keeping. We can accept this either by clicking accept or clicking tab. I'm gonna go ahead and click tab. And basically what it's doing is it's taking the drop off time and it's taking the pickup time, it's subtracting it, and then it's taking the average. And so we're just gonna go ahead and run this. And in seconds, that works perfect, but I don't want it in seconds. I want it in minutes. So I'm gonna edit this. I'm gonna say, I want the average to be in minutes, not seconds. It's gonna rewrite this and it's gonna divide it by 60, and that's really all it needs. Let's go ahead and tap this. Let's run our code. And now we have average trip duration in minutes. It's around 15 minutes. Now this is really great, but somebody who doesn't know what this is might be very confused. So I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna use one of these / and I'm gonna say add comments to code. So I'm just gonna hit enter. It's gonna start commenting on this code and I can click accept. It's just gonna say calculates the average trip duration in minutes by subtracting pickup from drop-off timestamps. Very simple, very straightforward, but it is really helpful for somebody who's gonna be coming behind you and reading this code. Now, as I mentioned before, this is for coding, but if you have other questions about the data, you can also come over here. So I'm just gonna say, tell me a bit about this data. Now, this is just kind of a really simple overview of the columns and kind of what's in it. It's pretty straightforward, but now let's ask it. We're gonna say, give me a simple data dictionary for each column. Now, I could have said for the whole data set. I don't know why I said column, but let's see what it gives us. And just like that, it is going to give us a data dictionary, basically a description for each column. And this is really useful. It reads in the data and just gives you a little bit of information about what is in that data, as well as the data type and the column name. So this is really useful. Now, as I mentioned before, this isn't only in the SQL editor. We can also do this within a notebook. So let's come over here and take a look at the assistant within a notebook. You can see we have this generate, and it's gonna look very similar as it did before in the SQL editor. Now, it can do a lot of similar things. It's gonna generate code, but it can do it in different languages now. So we can do Markdown, Python, SQL, Scala, and R. By default though, it is in Python. So let's come over here. Let's go ahead and ask it to give us the sample New York City taxi data and just see what it comes up with. It looks like this one is gonna be perfect. Let's go ahead and run this. And this is gonna give us exactly what we want. We have our data right here. Now, one of the things that I wanna highlight is that what you can do, because when you're working within these notebooks, you can use whatever language you'd like. You can convert it to other languages. So let's come up here to our code. I'm gonna say, can you convert this to SQL? It's going to take this, which was a data frame, a spark.sql data frame, and it displayed it. It's now converting it to SQL right here, and then we're reading in just the SQL. Let's go ahead and tab this, and we'll run it, and we should get the exact same output. So that's one of the things that you can do in notebooks that, of course, you're not going to do in a SQL editor because you're just using SQL. So that's how the assistant works within a SQL editor as well as a notebook. But let's head over here to our dashboards. Let's go and create a new dashboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull in that data that we were using before in our samples. So let's go to our catalog. Let's go to our samples, New York City, and we'll click on this. And we're going to say add to dashboard. So now we have this data right up here. This is our trips data. And what we're going to do is come right over here and we're going to add a visualization. The first thing that's going to come up right here is the assistant. It said, ask the assistant to create a chart or to create anything that we want. And so let's ask it to create something really simple. I wanted to create a card with the average fare amount. And let's go ahead and run this. So I just wanted to show us the average price for one of their fares for the taxi. And there we go. So super easy, super simple. Now let's ask it a little bit more difficult question. Create a line chart with the count of pickup times. And let's go ahead and run this. Now it did do this, and what's nice is we have it right over here. It did this based off of the month. I'm gonna change this manually to the day so that we can see a little bit easier what days have a lot or have a little. And we're just doing a simple count on the pickup dates. That's it. Now with both of these, I didn't click the accept button, but once you do, once you click accept, and you can of course change it, it is going to stay there like you just created it as a normal visualization. Now let's say I want to make a change this. Let's come up here and say change the daily, and I need to spell this right, daily to hourly. Let's go ahead and run this. And so there are gonna be a lot of people, they don't know how to come in here or don't want to come in here. They can do this by just writing, change the daily to hourly. I'm gonna accept this. Now this looks wild, but let's look at it. This is looking correct to me. Take away that global filter. And now we're looking at it hourly. And so we have a very, very accurate and specific view of hour by hour, the pickup times. And so this is how we can create different visualizations by just asking it. We can, of course, come in here because it's still using the exact things that we would use to create these. And so if we want to add labels, so I'm going to say add labels. I wouldn't on this data set. That's going to look terrible, but it's going to turn on the labels for you. And this looks horrible, but it did exactly what I requested. It's too granular to add labels. We would have to change this to probably weekly maybe, and add the labels for it to even make somewhat sense. There we go. So this looks a lot better, but we can do a lot of the things that we can manually do just using this. Now, if you already know how to create these visualizations just by memory, you won't need to use this all the time. But let's say you just can't figure out how to do it yourself, you can always ask. It is there to assist if you need it. You don't have to use it, but it can be useful if you're like, I just can't figure out how to create this. Let me just ask the assistant and see how they would create it. As you can see, there are a ton of ways that you can use AI in Databricks. You can use the Genie. You can use it in the SQL editor with the assistant. We can also use this assistant up here, which gives a little larger context, and we can use it in the notebooks. So it's integrated into a lot of different places that you would use as an analyst or a scientist or a data engineer. I really hope that this was helpful to you in learning AI within Databricks. And before we go, I want to give a huge shout out to the Databricks team for sponsoring this entire series. I've been using Databricks for over 5 years. I absolutely love Databricks. And when they said they wanted to sponsor these videos, I was like, absolutely. And I was even more sold when I heard that they had a free version that you guys can learn and you guys can practice using data and using AI within their platform. If you haven't already, be sure to get a free Databricks account. I will leave a link in the description so you can try all these things out yourself completely for free. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.